Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Dan Gorodnik. Welcome to today's City Planning Commission public hearing. I want to note that we are going to start today in a way that we don't usually start, which is to have a special review session, which for the benefit of those who are watching is what we usually do on the Monday of the week where we have our public hearings. But as it turns out today, we have a few modifications that have come to us from the City Council, making changes to applications that previously had been approved by the City Planning Commission. And so when that happens, they come back to us here for the purpose of a determination as to whether those changes that the City Council has made are within the scope of what has been already studied as part of the environmental review. So we're going to start today briefly with a special review session, and then we will move on to the formality of the public hearing for today's items. So let's start the special review session. I am going to go to Ryan Singer to introduce these items, and thanks everybody for being here.
Yes, good morning. This is a special review session for Wednesday, April 13th, 2022, the New York City Planning Commission. I will also note for the commissioners who were asking about remote public meetings that there was a provision in the state budget that was passed that allows us and other public entities to continue having remote meetings for 60 days after the enactment of that bill. So that would put us into mid-June that we will continue to have remote meetings for. Moving on, we have City Council modifications, and we're going to bundle the first two items. We have City Council modifications for 1034, 1042 Atlantic Avenue rezoning and 870, 888 Atlantic Avenue rezoning. I will do my best to channel Jonah Rogoff, who is unable to join us. So let's go to the next slide, please. Just to remind the commission, these were zoning map amendments on Atlantic Avenue in the area that we have been discussing with the community we call it M Crown. And they had also some text amendments for MIH and some street wall flexibility on 870 Atlantic Avenue, a special permit to reduce required off-street parking, and they resulted in the buildings that you see here, 17-story mixed-use buildings with 228 and 210 dwelling units and a certain number of affordable units pursuant to the MIH provisions. Next slide, please. So first off, in both of these applications, the City Council modified them to change the MIH options to retain option 1 and replace option 2 with the deep affordability option. And then furthermore, on the 1034, 1042 Atlantic Avenue proposal, they proposed to scale back the scope of the rezoning, the extent of the rezoning as pictured here. I'll just move my thing, pulling back the proposed zoning change 150 feet from the side street there. Both of these modifications are, staff believe they are within scope, and we can, I think, turn to any questions. Winston and Alex, if you have anything you want me to add or want to add anything.
No, I think that explains the modifications by the City Councils very well. Thank you, Brian.
Vice Chair Nichols, you're muted, Vice Chair.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So in either case, does the modifications change the massing of either project?
No, the change in the MIH options does not change any of the massing of the projects, and the change in the zoning map, as you can see here, doesn't actually touch the applicant controlled sites. And so the massing for those sites is unaffected by this change.
Yeah, my question didn't go to the MIH options, but
Yeah.
But while we're on the MIH options, so option one, modify to option one and deep affordability option, those would be alternative options under the modification, which is to say the developer could either do option
right.
one or deep affordability.
That's right. They could choose to do either of those.
I see. Thank you.
Commissioner Levin?
Yes, thank you. I'm glad to see these coming back and actually glad to see them moving through the process. I've seen some press reports about the possibility of pursuing the M-Crown rezoning. Is it something that may have been negotiated at the council level? I'm wondering if there's anything you can tell us about that.
Yeah, I can give you an update. Obviously, this is a point that we have been working on for quite some time. It certainly predates me and the efforts of the agency in interacting with the two local community boards in the area. And we know this is a point of importance to the community boards and also the local council member and also to the agency and to the commission. So we are going to take the next steps to move forward with the plan here for M-Crown, and we're going to take this moment to advance that conversation. So we're really excited about that. We think it's the right thing, and it's the right moment.
Excellent. That's good to know. Thank you very much.
And I will note, unless there's other questions on this one, that we are looking forward to that process. We're sure it will not be without complexity, but we are really excited to work with the local council member and the two local community boards and come out with a product that we all feel proud of and is a thoughtful plan. So we look forward to that. Ryan, let's see. So I guess what we need to do here is we need to get an assent by a voice vote to send a letter to the city council that these proposed modifications, this is the modifications that Ryan presented, not the ones that I'm talking about, that they are within scope. So I am going to ask for assent by a voice vote to send the letter that these proposed modifications are within scope for both 1034, 1042 Atlantic Avenue and for 870 to 888 Atlantic Avenue. For all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, excellent.
I'm abstaining. I'm seeing these emails at 9 o'clock last night and didn't have a chance to review it, so I'm just abstaining.
Okay. Commissioner Goodridge's abstention noted for the record. Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, Ryan, would you like to move on to 3285 Fulton or Sutter?
Sure. The third item is 3285 Fulton, and I believe that we are having Karina Leon present this for us today.
Thanks, Ryan. Good morning, commissioners. So this is a similar zoning modification to 3285 Fulton Street rezoning. Can you, next slide. Okay, so the applicants had proposed to rezone the entire block front of Fulton Street between Euclid, the entire block front of Fulton Street. They were proposing to rezone from an R5 C23 to an R7A C24 and also extend the enhanced commercial district from the East New York rezoning across the site. The city council or the applicant's development site is the corner lot shown in red, and the city council has proposed to reduce this rezoning area to only 70 feet from east of Euclid Ave, and completely remove the enhanced commercial district. Next slide. And then in addition to that, they're also proposing to modify the MIH from options 1 and 2 to option 1 and the deep affordability option. And I'll take any questions that you have.
Great. Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Ortiz.
Hi. I noticed in both cases that the scale of the rezoning area was significantly decreased, and I wondered, if we could have some guidance from council in terms of, whether this is considered spot zoning, when we begin to sort of tread into that territory, so to speak.
Thank you, Commissioner Ortiz. I think that's an important point. In fact, I was going to ask the broader question myself as to how common it has been over recent years for the council to modify to really just the applicant site, and whether we are, still in the realm of well-considered plan here for the purposes of zoning. Ryan, I don't know if you want to take that question or if you would like to.
Yeah, I can speak to it from a sort of the planner's point of view, although the commissioner had asked for sort of council's view on it. So it's not infrequent, right? The commission sees these, I'd say, a few times a year. And some are, I would say, more of a question about the sort of land use rationale than others. And the agency works really hard with applicants to develop the land use rationale for each of the zoning map amendments. And, it's the department's view that these, specifically when it's sort of cut back like this to just the applicant's site, it does start to undermine that land use rationale and sort of chip away at the basis of the zoning as a sort of based on the well-considered plan, as the chair said. I would also add that it has a substantive effect in that it reduces the potential to produce housing and affordable housing, and it can perpetuate blighted conditions in some situations. So, the department isn't exactly happy with these from a land use planning standpoint. They are within scope. We do agree with that. But I would see if Susan or anyone else wants to chime in on that.
I'm apologize for being on the street, but happy to chime in just very briefly. There is the council has a little bit more leeway, I think, that courts have recognized in terms of the considerations that they can take into account in approving a land use application. They don't explain to us what their rationale is for making the modifications. But we have taken a close look at that, and as Ryan pointed out, that it is not, I think, what we would have done in terms of looking at a well-considered plan, but I don't think we have a basis for saying that what the council did is inappropriate.
Thank you, Susan. Commissioner Ortiz, you have other questions?
No, I mean, I think that's really valuable. I guess so. We're being instructed to determine, whether it's within scope here, rather than whether there is a land use rationale. That's the guidance we're being given.
Correct. This is a scope determination only for us.
Thank you.
And I will note, thank you, Commissioner Ortiz, for raising it, because I think it's a really important point. And we do want to encourage the council to consider the broader point here, which is that we're making efforts to shape these opportunities in a way that we consider to be a well-considered plan. So we will think about how best to make that point to our partners in the City Council, because it's an important one, and it's certainly important to the agency. Are there other questions for Commissioner Burney? Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Just following up on Commissioner Ortiz's point here. I mean, we've had this conversation before on other council modifications, and although we might be powerless to prevent them making these modifications, I hope that in the letter we send, we express that dissent rather than just the kind of anodyne, it's in scope letter that we typically send. I hope that we can do that in the content of the letter.
What I would say, Commissioner, I appreciate the point, and obviously we have a bigger picture issue here in that there's clearly a difference of opinion between the agency commission on one hand and the city council on the other, and they are acting in a way that is within their right to act, but that we just have a policy differential. So what I would like to do with your consent, obviously with commissioner's consent, is to think a little bit about how best to make that point to them. I don't think that adding it as a point of objection in a single letter here will move the needle, but we really do want to move the needle because we think that the notion of having, as a member of our agency said, having the right zoning here should be its own reward. We want to try to get the right zoning for the area in a way that allows for thoughtful growth and allows for broader planning principles to be the ones that are guiding us in all of this. So what I would like, with your permission, is to think about how best to share our view, educate, try to persuade, as opposed to just tacking it onto a letter, because I think that it's an important enough point that we should think about how best to communicate that to them.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. But my point is just that not to leave a vacuum where they think, oh, well, the commission was perfectly happy with what we did because they didn't say anything, so. Yeah.
Well, let us let this conversation and this colloquy be the representation of the fact that the agency is not thrilled with the reducing of boundaries here, and that we want to have a broader conversation about how we can work together on this point.
Indeed. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner.
I will note that our colleagues at City Council Land Use have do listen to these review sessions, and so it's a strong likelihood that they are hearing this.
Okay, good. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, so we're still on, just for the record here, we are still on 3285 Fulton. Karina, thank you very much. We are here talking about a scope determination on this application. So I'm going to ask for sent by voice vote to send a letter to the City Council that the proposed modifications are within scope. And all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, nay.
Abstaining.
Abstentions? Yeah, okay, good. Gotcha. Abstention from Commissioner Goodridge. Thank you. The motion carries, and we'll move on to Sutton Avenue. I'm sorry, Sutter Avenue.
That's right. So this is for the Sutter City Council scope determination for Sutter Avenue rezoning. And Karina, I believe you were presenting this one as well.
Thank you. Next slide. So this application was to facilitate a 5-story residential development with 28 residential units, I believe. And the proposal is to modify an R5 district to R6A C24. The City Council modified this to move the western boundary of this to 75 feet east of Autumn Avenue. Next slide. They also proposed to modify the applicant's MIH proposed options 1 and 2 to option 1 and the deep affordability option. I'll take any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions on Sutter Avenue? Commissioner Levin?
Not so much a question, but a strong endorsement of the colloquy that you had with Commissioners Ortiz and Bernie about taking up this issue of cutting back zonings with the City Council. It's something we've talked about several times before, as Commissioner Bernie indicated, and I just want everyone to know that I think there's probably broad support. I can't speak for my colleagues, but I think there's probably very broad support among the commission for doing that. And if anyone can pull it off, our chair is certainly the one to do it. Thank you.
Thanks for saying that, Commissioner. Thank you for raising the expectations there. I appreciate it very much.
I agree.
Well, it's your former tribe. If you can't figure it out, no one can.
Understood. I have lots of affection for that institution, so we will find a way to have this conversation. Thank you for the comment. Are there other questions or comments on Sutter Avenue? Okay. Seeing none, I am going to ask for assent by voice vote to send a letter to the council that the proposed modifications are within scope here. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay. The ayes have it. Abstentions. Great. Thank you. I got you, Commissioner. Commissioner Goodridge on abstention. That is the business for the special review session for today. So we are going to end the special review session, Ryan, unless you have other business for the commission on that. Okay.
No further business in the review session.
Great. Thank you. That's just an alert on everybody's phone to be on the lookout for that Brooklyn subway shooting suspect. So, okay, let us move to the City Planning Commission public hearing. As you all know, today is the day when we hear from members of the public on land use applications that are in public review. The City Planning Commission will vote on several items, including housing and jobs related applications in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens. Today, we're going to have 3 public hearings on 2 affordable housing projects in Brooklyn and the Bronx, and an art gallery in Manhattan. Some of these serve as great examples of transit adjacent development, bringing people closer to rail and bus lines and helping to reduce our city's carbon footprint. In Boerum Hill, Brooklyn, we welcome the public to testify about a project that would bring about 24 new affordable homes to this jobs-rich area near Atlantic Avenue, Barclays Center's transit hub in New York City's most populous borough, the borough of Brooklyn. In Wakefield, the Bronx, near the Westchester border, we look forward to hearing from the public about a proposal to create 150 affordable homes plus daycare within walking distance of the 2 and 5 train lines, as well as several bus routes and a Metro North station. And last but not least, we invite the public to weigh in on a plan to convert a landmarked building formerly owned by the National Art Gallery into a for-profit art gallery and residence. The project is located a half a block from Central Park in Carnegie Hill on the Upper East Side, bringing more art to the renowned museum mile. We are looking forward to hearing from the public, and we know that people are already signed up for today's applications, and we are looking forward to continuing our important work of creating a more equitable city here. So let me just note, I'm going to ask Ryan to talk about the process for offering testimony. I know people are signed up already, but Ryan, if people have not yet figured it out or are still contemplating whether to add their voices, what do they need to do?
Sure. So verbal testimony may be provided online or by calling in on your telephone. If you wish to speak, you must register through the NYC Engage portal. If you wish to access the hearing, please register through the upcoming meetings page of the NYC Engage portal. A link to join the hearing is on the landing page after you register, so don't close that landing page without first clicking on the link. If you're accessing the hearing via phone and you wish to speak, you must first register with the dial-in participant hotline at the numbers listed on the screen. If one of the numbers is busy, please try another one. The meeting ID is 618-237-7396. Press pound to skip the participation ID. The password is the numeral 1. The phone number is also posted on the upcoming meetings page of the NYC Engage portal. Please note that no matter how you are accessing the meeting, you must first register if you want to speak. Those accessing the meeting online will have the option to turn on their camera while giving testimony. So when it's your turn to speak, you'll be notified and promoted to a panelist. This will allow you to unmute your microphone and give you the ability to turn on your camera. So listen closely for your name to be called. There will be a short period where it will appear that you're no longer in the meeting. Don't be alarmed. You should rejoin the meeting as the panelist. If you're accessing the hearing via phone, your name will be called from the list of registered speakers. Once your name has been called, you'll be given the temporary ability to unmute yourself. You do this by pressing *6 to unmute your phone. If you are listening through the online live stream and have not yet registered to speak, but you decide you wish to do so, you must first register through the upcoming meetings page of the NYC Engage portal. It's not possible to testify through the live stream. For those accessing the hearing via phone who have not yet registered to speak but wish to do so, you also must register to speak through the dial-in participant hotline that I described a moment ago. It's not possible to testify through the telephone without first having registered. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes of testimony, with a few exceptions. Elected officials are accorded the courtesy of jumping to the front of the queue and are not limited in time. If consecutive translation services are being used, the time will be extended to 5 minutes. And if an applicant team with 3 or more speakers wishes to make a team presentation, the team will generally be allowed a total of 10 minutes. The chair will announce when the time limit is reached. Be mindful of potential background noise during your testimony. Make sure that if you're watching the proceedings via live stream, that the live stream is muted when you begin your testimony. Otherwise, you will hear an echo. If you wish to submit written testimony, it should be submitted to the Department of City Planning. Our mailing and email addresses can be found on the website planning.nyc.gov. And note that this remote public hearing is being recorded.
Excellent. Thank you as always, Ryan. And again, good morning, everybody. I'm going to ask the secretary to please begin the meeting. Madam Secretary.
Good morning. This is the City Planning Commission public meeting held remotely through the NYC Engage portal. Today is Wednesday, April 13th, 2022. I will now call the roll. Chair Garodnick.
I'm here.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes, I'm here.
Commissioner Burney.
Here.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Here.
Commissioner Dewick.
Here.
Commissioner Edie.
Here.
Commissioner Goodrich.
Here.
Commissioner Levin.
Here.
Commissioner Marin.
Here.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Here.
Commissioner Rompershad.
Here.
A quorum is present. The first item is the approval of the minutes of the public meeting of Wednesday, March 30th, 2022.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. On the minutes, I make a motion to approve the minutes of March 30, 2022. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Minutes are approved.
Scheduling, calendar numbers 1 through 8. We have resolutions for adoption, scheduling Wednesday, April 27th, 2022, for a remote public hearing to be held through the NYC Engage portal.
Thank you. On those resolutions, I make a motion to approve. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay, the ayes have it.
The next part of the calendar is the report section on page 9. Borough of the Bronx, calendar number 9, HRA office space, 810 River Avenue, CD4, N220168PXX. In the matter of an application for the notice of intent to acquire office space concerning HRA office space, 810 River Avenue, for favorable report on calendar number 9. Chair Garodnick.
I vote aye. Thank you.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Burney.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Dewick.
Yes.
Commissioner Edie.
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrich.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Yes.
Commissioner Rompershad.
Yes.
Favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 9. Borough of Brooklyn, calendar numbers 10 and 11, 840 Lorimer Street rezoning, CD1, calendar number 10, C210299ZMK, calendar number 11, N210300ZRK, and the matter of applications for a zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning 840 Lorimer Street rezoning for favorable reports on calendar numbers 10 and 11. Chair Garodnick,
I vote aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles,
Yes.
Commissioner Burney,
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo,
Yes.
Commissioner Duick,
Yes.
Commissioner Edie,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrich.
Just briefly, I listened and heard the community board in this one in terms of it fitting with the character of the neighborhood, and what would have swayed this for me is if there were more than 19 out of 74 affordable units. And so it's a no for me.
Commissioner Levin,
Yes.
Commissioner Marin,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz,
yes,
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Favorable reports have been adopted on calendar numbers 10 and 11. Borough of Brooklyn, calendar number 12, Broadway Triangle Bartlett Crossing, CD1, C220209, HAK. In the matter of application for UDAP designation, project approval, and disposition of city-owned property concerning Broadway Triangle Bartlett Crossing. For favorable report on calendar number 12, Chair Garodnick,
Aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles,
I am glad to see continued investment in this area. I vote yes.
Commissioner Burney,
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo,
Yes.
Commissioner Duick,
Yes.
Commissioner Edie,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrich,
Yes.
Commissioner Levin,
Yes.
Commissioner Marin,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz,
yes,
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 12. Borough of Brooklyn, calendar number 13, 2300 Cropsey Avenue, CD11, C200358ZMK, in the matter of an application for a zoning map amendment concerning 2300 Cropsey Avenue. For favorable report on calendar number 13, Chair Garodnick,
Vote aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles,
Yes.
Commissioner Burney,
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo,
Yes.
Commissioner Duick,
Yes.
Commissioner Edie,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrich,
Yes.
Commissioner Levin,
Yes.
Commissioner Marin,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz,
yes,
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 13. Borough of Queens, calendar numbers 14 and 15, 3501 Vernon Boulevard rezoning, CD1, calendar number 14, C220050ZMQ, calendar number 15, N220051ZRQ. And the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning 3501 Vernon Boulevard rezoning. For favorable reports on calendars numbers 14 and 15, Chair Garodnick,
Vote aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles,
Yes.
Commissioner Burney,
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo,
Yes.
Commissioner Duick,
Yes.
Commissioner Edie,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrich,
Yes.
Commissioner Levin,
Yes.
Commissioner Marin,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz,
yes,
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Favorable reports have been adopted on calendar numbers 14 and 15. Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 16, 28 McKee Avenue, CD3, N220278RCR, and the matter of application for the grant of certification concerning 28 McKee Avenue. For adoption on calendar number 16, Chair Garodnick,
Aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles,
Yes.
Commissioner Burney,
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo,
Yes.
Commissioner Duick,
Yes.
Commissioner Edie,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrich,
Yes.
Commissioner Levin,
Yes.
Commissioner Marin,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz,
yes,
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Calendar number 16 has been adopted. Borough of Staten Island, calendar numbers 17 through 20, 71 Anfield Court, CD2, calendar number 17, N220245ZAR. Calendar number 18, N220246ZAR. Calendar number 19, N220247ZAR. Calendar number 20, N220248ZCR. And the matter of an application for grant of authorizations and a certification concerning 71 Anfield Court for adoption on calendar numbers 17 through 20. Chair Grodnick.
Aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Burney.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Duick.
Yes.
Commissioner Edie.
Yes.
Commissioner Goodridge.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Yes.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Calendar numbers 17 through 20 have been adopted. Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 21, 71 Portsmouth Avenue, CD2 N220309ZCR, in the matter of an application for the grant of a certification concerning 71 Portsmouth Avenue for adoption on calendar number 21. Chair Grodnick.
Aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Burney.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Duick.
Yes.
Commissioner Edie.
Yes.
Commissioner Goodridge.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz. Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Calendar number 21 has been adopted. Borough of Staten Island, calendar numbers 22, 23, and 24. 34 Cedar Cliff Road, CD1, calendar number 22, N220190ZCR. Calendar number 23, N220191ZAR. Calendar number 24, N220192ZAR. And the matter of application for the grant of a certification and authorizations concerning 34 Cedar Cliff Road for adoption on calendar numbers 22, 23, and 24. Chair Grodnick.
Aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Burney.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Duick.
Yes.
Commissioner Edie.
Yes.
Commissioner Goodridge.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Yes.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Calendar numbers 22, 23, and 24 have been adopted. The next part of the calendar is the public hearing section on page 23.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam Secretary. And again, we're going to ask those who are testifying to limit their remarks to 3 minutes. I'll also remind you that if you'd like to speak via the live stream or by phone, you need to register first. So if you missed the instructions at the top, you can go to www.nyc.gov/NYC in the Engage portal for instructions on how to register to testify, either via the online live stream or by phone. So now I'm going to ask Madam Secretary, I'd like you to call the first item for public hearing today.
Borough of Brooklyn, calendar numbers 25 and 26, 98 3rd Avenue, CD2, calendar number 25, C200335ZMK, calendar number 26, N200336ZRK. Public hearing and the matter of applications for a zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning 98 3rd Avenue.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Let me note we have an applicant team, which includes Anna Martinova, Eric Palatnik, Clarissa Reyes, and Brian Newman. They are all signed up together. So I'm going to defer to you all as to who's speaking. Please introduce yourself, and as soon as you're ready, go right ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is Eric Palatnik speaking right now, and kudos on your pronunciation of Anna's last name. I've been struggling with that. And just for clarification, Clarissa Reyes of our team is just an administrative, not just, but the best administrative assistant, but she is not testifying. So it'll be me, Brian Newman, the project architect, and Anna, as you so correctly pronounced her last name, Martin Nova. I'd like to thank the commission and the chair for your infectious enthusiasm. It clearly runs throughout everything everybody is doing, and we hear it in everybody's voices. So thank you for that, especially after a day like yesterday, from which we are not very far from. And of course, it's going to be our great city and our communities that are going to make us also resilient to this, as we are all right back at it the next day. This is a building that is resilient too. We're here with you with a rezoning at 98 3rd Avenue. It is a rezoning that has been 10 years in the works with a lot of community support. We have a unanimous recommendation from Community Planning Board 2. I'm very proud of that. We have the support of the local civic association, and we've been working very closely with Wrestler. We have also spoken and met with the borough president, who has given us a list of some conditions, and I'll address those as we go through the presentation. You see the building here in front of you, and I'll stay here for a second to take a look at it as I explain it. It is in a manufacturing zoning district that is the vestige of a zoning district that was left in the 60s to accommodate what was then a very active manufacturing area. I like to tell the tale that my grandfather ran a bakery not too far away, and this was an industrial area mixed with housing around it. This was left M, while all around it went residential. This one singular block is now zoned manufacturing. We operate and control a gas corner, 5,000 square feet, and we are asking to rezone the entire block front on 3rd Avenue that extends from Bergen to Wyckoff to become an R7D. And if it does get established, it would create this beautiful 8-story building with approximately 3,000 ground square feet of commercial local retail at the ground floor that we're working with the councilman to find a suitable use there. And it would include 29 units upstairs, which would be primarily studios and 1-bedrooms. Again, working with the councilman to address that, for a total of 29 units, 7 of which would be affordable at MIH option level 1. Again, working with the councilman to address that. If you can go to the next slide, please. This is the site in all of its glorious splendor today. It is a family that is a local New York City family that controls and operates many of the Shell gas stations that you see around it. The Shell gas station you see here once serviced what was then a thriving manufacturing area in Gowanus. And of course, everything's changed a bit and people don't go to this gas station quite so much anymore. And of course, there's the advent of electric cars as well. So we're asking to rezone this to from a manufacturing zone to the resident R7D. We can click through the next few slides just to give you a sense of what everything looks like. You can pause there for a moment. You can go back one slide if you had a moment. This slide gives you a good depiction of the Wyckoff houses that are next to us. Obviously, rather large tower in the park types of development. We've met with the board of directors of the Wyckoff Gardens, and we've pledged to work with them. That was one of the conditions that you'll see in the borough president's recommendation, and you could see their building there. The area that's supposed to be rezoned is depicted in the dashed lines there. You can see that there. Across the street is an R7A zone. We're snugly resting between R7A and R6A all around us, except for the entire block we're on is zoned manufacturing. Next slide, please. This shows you much clearer. I just misspoke. It's not the entire block is zoned manufacturing. Everything except for the few brownstone row houses that are on Wyckoff, but remainder of it is zoned M1-2. If the rezoning is approved, we would ask that you rezone the entire block front to create a more synthetic and a well-supported land for the rezoning, but our property is only the little red one in there in between there that you see on the, not in between, but on the corner. The remainder of the block is M1-2, and there is a rather large rezoning underway that we are not a part of or related to for that M1-2 portion. We are not related to that. There are also city-owned properties where the letters R7D are on the block front on 3rd Avenue. DCAS controls those. Those are not ours. We do not control those. Next slide, please. This shows you the block front just in more detail. We can skip ahead, please. And the zoning map change, which is, of course, the whole reason we're here. I think this tells the whole tale of how a logical request that we're making here. As I depicted to you earlier, you can see an R7A district is across the street and next door on all sides, and we're just simply seeking to extend that to an R7D, which would have the added benefit of providing affordable inclusionary housing, which the other districts around us don't have. And the next slide, please. Brian is here. Brian, do you want to talk to the plans a bit while we're here and speak to some of the green features? And while you're doing that, I think you can control the screen going ahead a little bit.
Sure. Thank you, Eric. Good morning, Mr. Chair, commissioners. Brian Newman, Newman Design. So what we have here obviously is a rendering depiction of the proposed facade. We work very closely with Brooklyn City Planning, as well as Community Board, council members, as well as the borough president, specifically in developing not only some of the green features, which I'll get into in a moment, but the architecture as well. As you can see here, we have a mix of varying materials on the facade. To break up the massing, we have a few different types of masonry here, with the commercial component along 3rd Avenue, wrapping the corner. So it really gives to the human scale there, and it keeps a live, active, safe streetscape. The residential entry is around the corner there on the right-hand side, which is on Bergen. It's a little bit of a canopy there, which is also accentuated by the dark brick on the right-hand side there, that gray brick. And then to further break up the massing, we utilized a rain screen on the upper 2 floors, which step back. And you can see sort of a wood look. It's a non-combustible. It's really a porcelain tile, but it gives you that softening, more natural feel of wood on those top 2 floors. The architecture is somewhat reminiscent of the loft style, warehouse style, with these replica steel factory windows, sort of playing off the context of what is there. I think I can control this. Can I control this?
Just say next, please.
Next, thank you.
Brian, we can go to the next slide. We can skip ahead a couple to get to the plans. There you go. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So we're proposing an 8-story building. As you can see, it steps back on the 7th floor on either side. We've created occupiable roof terraces on both the 7th and the main. On the main roof, the 7th floor is for individual units. The main roof above the 8th floor is for all the residents to be able to enjoy the outside space here. The overall height's approximately 85 feet. Max zoning, I think, is about 115, but we've essentially maxed out on the overall FAR. We are providing a cellar in the building, which will have mechanical storage, storage for tenants, bike storage, and additional mechanical and laundry services for the residents as well. Next slide, please. Go ahead.
I was going to just jump in here and show the commission. We're trying to exemplify here the heights of the buildings around us and show that they blend in. And I think, Brian, you could bring it down now, right, to speak to some of the issues that were brought up with the borough president with respect to the BPP and building out the curbs on the street and the green features in the building, maybe to just explore it with everybody and let them know what that's all about.
Yeah, that would be great. If we could maybe just jump ahead to maybe 2 slides and we sort of have it all listed here. But essentially, this is sort of core of what we do on the majority of our projects, but obviously very important to the borough president here. So as I mentioned before, the roofs will have vegetated green roofs. So that upper floor, that main roof will have a green roof system. And what we usually do is put a perimeter path around there, not only to comply with FDNY, but that way residents can come up there, they can walk around, they can sit, but you'll also have that green roof in there as well. Photovoltaic panels, will investigate the possibility of utilizing that as well. All light fixtures on the exterior will be dark sky compliant with controlled by photocells. All the interior lights will be LED and utilizing motion sensors, especially in all the common areas, the utility rooms, so the janitor's closet doesn't stay on overnight and things like that. High recycled content and low VOC for all the finishes, low flow plumbing fixtures and dual flush toilets. Obviously, the thermal value on the envelope will exceed code requirements, and that also goes with how we address the specifications on the windows by increasing the coatings and the argon and things of that nature. There will be no natural no natural gas or fossil fuels utilized in the building as well. It'll be an all electric building.
I think good place to leave it there, Brian, and let Anna speak and finish it up. Go to the next slide, please. Next slide. And Anna Martinova is just going to speak for a few minutes, and we'll cease our presentation there. This shows you the idea that's been set forth and agreed to with the council person. As a matter of fact, this slide is actually, we tweaked it a little bit.
Time. Yeah.
Hi. Thank you so much, Eric. Good morning, everybody. And my name is Anna Martinova. I work at City 5 Consulting. We're a real estate consulting firm, and our office was retained to ensure that this project's affordable
guys.
component.
Hey, sorry, that's 10 minutes.
Okay, so sorry about that, folks, but time is up. Ms. Martinova, we'll see if we can. There may be a question that will be relevant for you to answer. Let me just jump in with a couple of questions. I think my questions are mostly for Mr. Palatnik. On MIH, it's 6 units, option 1. You had mentioned in your opening that it was 7. I just want to make sure that we have the right number, that it's 6.
A good question for Anna, but the correct number of MIH units that we've gotten, the reason it's been back and forth is we've been working with the councilman. We are at 7 MIH units right now, 29 total units, 7 are MIH. And Anna, is that consistent with what your latest numbers are?
Yes, we're going to have 7 MIH units at this location.
7. Okay, 7, option 1.
Option 1, right. MIH option 1.
And Chair, we can submit to you, to your attention, a copy of what we gave to the Borough President's office just the other day. We have been working with the councilman to make the units smaller, to create more units. And we've been doing that over the last few days. And that's why the number is fluctuating a bit. We do have our latest and greatest, which is the 7. And we have that in writing in a letter to the Borough President, which we will forward to you after this hearing and submit it to your attention so you can have it in writing as well.
Excellent, thank you. And on the height, I know you had that slide which showed the context of everything. I want to just ask about it's an 8-story building, 85 feet,
yes,
as it relates to the tower and the park buildings that you showed right next door. How high are those buildings?
Austin I apologize. I don't know who's controlling the screen right now. If they could pull up that slide. I don't have that exact number in front of me at the moment, but they're upwards of 20 stories. They're 25, 26 stories tall buildings, I believe. They are quite large. I don't know if they're
180, Eric, roughly.
180 feet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then the last question is one for Mr. Palatnik, and then we'll go to Commissioners Marin and Rampersad. You noted in your presentation, you obviously heard our discussion at the top of this gathering today about whole blocks versus individual sites. You made the comment that you think it makes sense to do the whole, a bigger slice than just the building of interest. Can you just help us from your perspective? Why do you believe that to be an important principle here?
Thank you for asking the question, because I'd like to give you a little bit of knowledge that I've accumulated during my meetings and whatnot over the past few years on the project. Obviously, the middle of the block is not controlled by anybody. It's controlled by the city. I believe there is a strong desire I've seen from people to redevelop and create new things. I don't think the community is necessarily there yet on what they want to see. I think the lots in the middle that are subject, most of them that are coming along for the ride with this rezoning are owned by the city right now. DCAS controls them. So I don't think it'll spur any immediate development in my perspective, because the city controls them. And if development were to occur on those lots, we can go to, I don't know if anybody take us back to the tax map. You can see on the tax map. Okay, so if you can look at the tax map, it's sort of hard to see here, but basically the only thing that's not owned by the city are the 2 ends of the block, which is our property and the property to the right of us on Bergen Street, and the other end of the block, which is Wyckoff Street and the little part that's zoned R6B. I believe the other lots in the middle are all controlled by the city. The one on the corner is a fertility doctor. He owns the one on Wyckoff. We've reached out to him. He's not a developer. He's there for his business. So I think the immediate development that would be spurred by this rezoning would be our site, because we've been at this for a decade and we're enthusiastic. I don't think that the rezoning of the mid block will necessarily cause any immediate change. It'll give the community time to change, to formulate a plan with the other rezoning, which I'm sure you've heard of, which is going on behind us. But that's a decision that's up to the councilman and you and greater minds than I. I think that the neighborhood, if you go to the go to the zoning map change. I think once you look at the zoning map change, I think it's a no-brainer just from a map change that it would fit. Everything around us is residential. So of course the block front, and this is a leftover from the 60s. So of course it would make sense, I think. And it's a desolate sort of stretch. It's quiet and dormant. So any activity there would be good, but these are better minds than I can make it up. I know that it's very active in the community level and the discussion and with the councilman. So I'd leave it to them to defer, but that's why we brought the application the way it is presented to you right now.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Marin.
Thank you, Chair. So my question was relative to something that I saw on one of the drawings that Brian had put up. Brian, it's a pleasure to see you, and Eric as well, Anna. Relative to the Mitsubishi split units that you're proposing for the building. So my question would be, why would you put in a new building? There may be a maintenance question, an issue here, which is why I'm asking the question. Why would you put an air handler in a room versus using a duct in the ceiling on a new construction?
So good observation. You probably saw the louvers on the exterior, and that's what's
No, I actually saw the unit itself, the air handler. You showed a picture of an air handler, so that's what I'm getting at, and that usually gets installed in the room.
Yeah. So it's quite possible. We have not vetted this yet with the MEP engineer. We have not brought them on board, but it's quite possible, as we're doing on a number of our other projects, where it would be hung in a suspended ceiling, maybe over a closet or a bathroom, where you could lower the ceiling a little bit there and putting the condensing unit outside. So that's probably more than likely that's how the system will end up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Marin. Commissioner Rampersad.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I was just wondering if Anna can briefly go through that slide about the affordability breakdown.
Sure. It's actually a few slides further. This is the original proposal, and we have another one. Yes, this is the one that we will be sticking with. So we updated the unit mix to have the 29 units in total, and under MIH option 1, where we have to allocate 25% of the residential square footage, we will have 7 affordable units. And if you go to the next slide, you can see the breakdown of those units with the AMI details and approximate rents that we will be able to charge for those units. As you can see, there is a weighted average of 60% AMI, and there are some units at 40% AMI, 60% AMI, and 80% AMI. As you can see on the slide the breakdown of the affordable units. We'll have 1 affordable studio apartment. We will have 5 affordable 1-bedroom units and 1 affordable 2-bedroom unit.
Okay, so no 3 bedrooms. Okay, that's
No
to see the
3
breakdown.
bedrooms.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Let me see if there are other questions from the Commission. Thank you very much to all of you for your presentation today. I note that we do not have members of the public signed up to testify here, so I'm just going to give another final few seconds to see if anybody materializes. Seeing none, I'm going to close the hearing on this item at 98 3rd Avenue. And I am going to ask the secretary to call the second public hearing of the day. And I thank the team for your presentation on calendar numbers 25 and 26. Now we'll move on to 27. Thank you.
Borough of Manhattan, calendar number 27, 3 East 89th Street, CD8 C220174 ZSM, public hearing and application for a special permit concerning 3 East 89th Street.
Great. Thank you very much. Let me note we have an applicant team here, as well as a number of members of the public signed up to testify. For the applicant team, we have Cass Stackelberg, Stuart Beckerman, Jim Hare, Jean Greenberg Roeden, and I am going to turn the floor to them. Please introduce yourself when you start, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, Chair Gorodnick and Commissioners. I'm Stuart Beckerman from the Law Office of Hirsch and Singer and Epstein. And presenting today, in addition to myself, are Genie Greenberg Roberton, who's the applicant and the owner of the property and of the art gallery, Salon 94, and Jim Herr from Raphael Vanoli Architects, who's the project architect. Cass Stackelberg will be available if there are any questions concerning landmarks issues and restoration. As was indicated, our application is for a special permit under 74-711 to allow on a zoning lot split between an R10 within this special park improvement district and an R8B in an existing building within the expanded Carnegie Hill Historic District, waivers of use in bulk to facilitate an enlargement and a change of use to a use group 6 art gallery. Next slide, please. So briefly, we've received all the necessary landmarks approvals. We've received strong support from both the community board and the borough president. When we get to my portion of the presentation, I will address, even though the community board had no conditions, they did urge that we implement certain changes suggested by the Carnegie Hill neighbors. I will address those. I will now turn to Genie Greenberg Roberton, who will talk about her gallery, her vision for the building, and why the waivers we're seeking are essential to her project. Genie?
Great. Thank you so much, Stuart. And thank you so much to the chair, Gardnick, and to the commissioners for considering this application. We are very excited to share it with you. My name is Genie Greenberg Roberton, and since 2002, I launched my business under the name Salon 94, first out of my home at 12 East 94th Street. And then the business grew to 3 different contemporary art galleries around New York City. In particular, I moved down to the Bowery. I was looking though for a space to expand in the Upper East Side where I live. And when I saw 3 East 89th Street, I dreamed of giving it new life as its original intent as an art gallery for my full operations. It has been wonderful to be able to work with renowned architect Raphael Vanoli to restore this Beaux-Arts building, working to ensure that this portion of the National Academy of Architecture and Design complex remains devoted to art. With the publicly accessible galleries, we have really enjoyed the public, even starting in March, coming through the galleries and enjoying it as a public space anew. We look forward to completing the remaining restoration of the work, subject to the ULURP approval, which you'll hear more about. Throughout the pandemic, we have been activating the space through our nonprofit S94 Plus, welcoming hundreds of people, including local school and civic groups.
We should move the slide, next slide, and actually she's 2 slides over now.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Actually, maybe stick onto the first slide so that they can see the building activated. I think it's really interesting to see one of our first exhibitions in this space during the pandemic. We brought in these 2 enormous lions and invited families with their children to play on it. We turned it into a virtual playground. We had over 100 people a day signing up to come in and play on the lions. So it was great. And since the Guggenheim Museum has bought the lions to go to one of their satellite museums, so it will be continued to be used by the public. And that was under Niki de Saint Phalle Foundation, which is a nonprofit foundation. So it was all very exciting for our opening show, in fact. Okay, we can go on to the next slide. So we have been continuing to invite in groups and as well artists to use the site. On the right, you see that we brought into the building an entire studio of renowned designer Gaetano Pesci, where he actually used the space as his working gallery, as his working studio. And he actually made work. People could come in, they could walk around and see he and his apprentices during the doing the studio practice. We just launched actually my partnership with LGDR, which during the pandemic, as you can imagine, smaller scale galleries, we suffered a little bit, and we decided to come together as a group. And we plan to operate our commercial business out of this building and as well another building in hopes for approval from you. As an appendage to the Design Academy, the building lacked essential infrastructure, basic mechanicals, plumbing, code compliant elevators, ADA compliant bathrooms, and other key components of a functioning building, because we were attached to these two other buildings. And in fact, all of our water and electricity came from another site all together. So we were really a shell when we started this project, and slowly we have been trying to add the infrastructure. Of course, we are still missing key spaces that we really need to add these.
Amy, please wrap up. We're actually running out of time.
Oh, okay. So I'll just wrap up by saying that we are hoping very much to have a flexible workspace on the top floors. We're going to have a public library, and then the top floors where we will be one of the only galleries to invite in international artists to be able to stay and work on the premises. Thank you so much. I will turn it over.
Hey, Jim.
Jim Herr, Rockfield Vanelli Architects. So we've already, part of the 74-711 historic restoration, we've already completed a majority of the restoration before we've actually received our special permit. This is an example of what the current facade has been restored, about the terrace, the entrance, the windows, and whatnot. Next slide, please. This is the before and after of 89th Street. Next slide. As Genie mentioned, the existing building at 89th Street was really composed of two buildings, two spaces on a floor, all historic spaces that have been retained, and some of them have been restored and whatnot. And we've needed to allocate administrative support, and this is and mechanicals, bathrooms, and elevators, which is one of the impetus for our special permit request. Next slide.
Jim,
yeah.
maybe I should take over since we're running out of time here. Can we move forward to slide 11? I wanted to address we're part of a larger zoning lot. We're subject to a declaration of zoning lot development and restrictions, which I'll discuss in a moment, which affects what we can and can't do on the property. Next slide. So again, these are the special permit requirements and findings. We've made all that. So I think move up. Where's the slide? I think this is an old version. Where's the slide on the Carnegie Hill Neighbors proposal? I feel like it's missing. It was in move back.
Don't rush. I'm going to ask you about it anyway.
No, but we had it in our.
We can go right to that.
This is the old one. I think this is not. Yeah, this is the old. You don't have the most recent one, which I know was on your portal yesterday, and it's now missing. So there were two additional slides that were inserted here that talked about the specific proposal, and we were showing the modification that we were proposing, and for some reason it's not here, and I regret that. But basically, the Carnegie Hill Neighbors, what they proposed a couple of things. One was that we can't support, and can we find the visual on that.
Pause for 1 second. Let's just see if
This
our
is,
team can bring.
For some reason, the old PowerPoint, the unamended PowerPoint is up.
Okay, it's okay. Go, let the clock go down to 0. I got to ask you about it anyway, because I think it's the most important thing that remains here. So, but we will see if we can pull it up, and Ryan will.
I know it's on your website because I pulled it, and for some reason that's the one, not what came up today.
Okay, let's just we'll give it a second. Well, actually, let me ask you first question while we wait for that. Talk to us about the space upstairs.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I know that it's the concept is flexible workspace, allow for visiting artists. Is it intended to be a single unified space, or is it intended to be multiple spaces?
And Genie touched on this. Her vision for this building is unique, and it's basically she foresees the residence and the art gallery as being a single integrated use. And so the 4th floor, which is the lowest level of the residence, will include a kitchen that will be available to both the residents and the art gallery. And the 4th floor also will house the world-class art library, which she had mentioned, which will be available to the public by appointment. So that occupies a large part of the 4th floor. The 4th and 5th floor residential spaces will also allow for the artists to live and to do administrative and studio work related to their exhibitions. And then the top floor is really mainly their sort of private sanctuary, which is why it was so important that we had already reduced the floor plate during the landmarks process to address their concerns and to reduce the visibility, which we've succeeded in doing, which is also one of the reasons why we couldn't agree to one of the changes that were requested by the Carnegie Hill neighbors. I guess I could briefly sort of explain.
Well, Mr. Beckerman, let me just understand the top floor that you're describing. Is that the penthouse that Carnegie Hill neighbors had proposed reducing, moving to a different location? Is that
right,
the private space you're talking about?
Right. What they proposed was so looking at this, as you can see, there's a 55.5-foot setback at that level from the street. So what they wanted was for it to be set back an additional 4.5 feet or so, and then the floor area that would be lost through that relocated to the east side of the penthouse addition, which unfortunately becomes like a 3-foot wide unusable space because it's outboard of where the stairs will be. So it's really not useful to us. But I think most significantly, and the reason they wanted that was to benefit some of the lower floors of actually, if you want to move forward, I can show you on a diagram of the floor plans. And you'll see one of the lower, so keep going. I'm sorry, this is like throwing me off. Briefly, so looking at that at the top level on the right, they wanted us to set it back further and to create, actually, if you move forward, and I think when you go to the light and air diagram, this is where it's helpful. There's a light and air diagram. Keep going. Yeah, so this is good. So you'll see that inner court on the left for 1085th, no, back to 19. So you'll see that 1085th Avenue to the right, that inner court is 54 feet from those east-facing windows to our building. So those units, Carnegie Hill neighbors asked on behalf of those units if we could create more of an open view corridor in the front of our penthouse to provide additional light and air in addition to what's being provided by the inner court. And we cannot do that because it would, for the reasons I've already stated, but also because it would shift the floor area into the R8B, which obviously would create a problem from us from a scope standpoint. But also most significantly, it would create a problem for landmarks because it would increase the visibility of the penthouse from the street. What was ultimately agreed upon and what was ultimately, in our proposal reflects what landmarks consider to be appropriate and also what works for us at a minimum.
Okay, so if I understand it correctly, the proposal was that they asked you to consider was move the penthouse a smidge to the east to increase light and air for
Reduce
1080
the-
Fifth Avenue's inner court.
Reduce
And
the
what-
depth, reduce the depth of the penthouse by 4.5 feet, and then move the lost floor area from the reduction in depth onto the east.
Okay, so, all right, well, I think we're kind of saying the same thing, which is take it from one side and put it on the other, essentially,
Exactly.
right? Okay, and I understand the R8B issue, I understand the landmarks issue. Can you explain the stair issue?
Maybe Jim can better explain that.
There was a, there is a, an attachment that was included in the presentation that was there, but. Slide 28.
Oh, there, that was actually what we were discussing. Go ahead. That was, yeah.
Okay, keep going, so the
Sure.
chair can see the stair. 28, next slide. 28, please. Keep going. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. That's up there, it's fine. So on the right, you can see the shift of the penthouse, and basically the existing ornamental stair that is part of the landmark feature of the building, which can't be touched, would result in a 3-foot corridor. The other component is that the penthouse, in terms of the penthouse element in the back, sits directly on the historic bulkhead, the Anna Huntington studio, which is right below this. And so that would create another rear condition. But basically, the 3-foot corridor is essentially unusable.
Okay, I must admit that this this diagram is confusing me a little bit, but only because I need you to orient me.
Oh, sure.
I'm looking at it from top down.
Yes.
And presumably the bottom is 89th Street and the
Exactly.
top is okay. And I see the LPC approved scheme, and this is the actual penthouse. You've got the artist space, you've got support space, and then you have a staircase which takes you all the way up.
Down
right
to the
to that
top.
space, up and down, yep. And then on the right, the Carnegie Hill neighbors proposal would say, if you were to add space, oh, I see, it's unusable because it's just to the right of the staircase. Is that your point?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, all right. You know what? I just talked myself through it. I didn't even need any help. I just needed 30 more seconds. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And can I just interject very quickly that that the inner court, we should have a picture of the building's inner court, because they're actually their side back windows that are the quite narrow windows, and the light and air that we have between is actually it's actually a large amount of light and air, and that we will be improving their view, because right now they're looking onto mechanical equipment. So, you know, even though they're very narrow back rooms for this particular group of neighbors. So we've been really trying to make it very beautiful and keep them in mind. But this we did go over very, very carefully with landmarks, and it was a very long process that we did. And so we feel very proud of what we've put forward with their unanimous approval. And then also the community board as well put forth a very strong support as well.
Okay, thank you. Before I go to other commissioners, to the extent they have questions, let me just add one more on this slide right here, just to make sure I completely understand it.
Yeah.
It would seem to me that, based on what we were discussing before, that the proposed changes from Carnegie Hill neighbors would have had this addition moved slightly away from the west side of the building, in a way, the west side of 3 East 89th Street, so as to allow for more light and air in that courtyard, but I don't
Yeah.
see it moved on this diagram. I guess that's what I'm confused by.
It's
Because
not
if you're-
moved, again, I
It's
think,
moved northward.
no, it's not moved at all. It's reconfigured. So the depth has
Oh,
been
I
reduced in the
see.
front,
I see.
and the width has been increased on to the right.
I see. Okay, so I see it now. So on the southern side of this penthouse, you have taken off some of the floor area and you have reconfigured it to widen it a little bit to the east, which is the area that is east of the staircase and a little bit more. Okay, I see it now. Okay,
Chair,
thank you.
sorry to interrupt, but before we go on to questions, I think shouldn't we present our modification even though we don't have a visual to explain it?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so unfortunately, we don't have a visual. I think probably the best visual we can use, Jim or Mike, I'm sorry, if you go back to the rear yard maybe diagram. Go back to the rear yard diagram. Sorry. Going back. It's like, I think it's
17.
back, yeah, the next, there you go. Okay, so if you look at the 4th and 5th floors, what Carnegie Hill Neighbors proposed was, you see on the 4th and 5th floors, you see that triangular projection into the rear yard. As you know, right now there's a 10-foot rear yard at the 4th and 5th floor, and we're filling in the side. So what was suggested there, and this was really to provide additional light and air to the rear windows at 1083 5th, which incidentally are over 65 feet away from here. They suggested reducing that angle so that rather than it touching the rear lot line, it would pull back about 5 feet. So what we're proposing, rather than do it that way, accomplish the same result for 1083 by squaring it off. So basically, there's no reduction in floor area. We just reconfigure that from a right angle triangle to sort of a squared off, and it ends at 5 feet from the rear lot line. So
actually, Stuart,
go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, this was actually drawn by them.
No,
Low made that actually this drawing that we used as a model.
Well, we don't have Lowe's drawing here. This is our drawing, but
No, I know, but I'm just saying that.
exactly. And unfortunately, it was a part of our presentation, but for some reason it didn't show up today. So that's basically it. There should, we believe it's, completely within scope, and it shouldn't be an issue. Obviously, your tech people need to sign off on that, but we feel it's completely defensible, and it's something we can live with.
Okay, thank you. And you have name checked him, so I'm just going to note that you are referring to the great Lo Vandervalk of Carnegie Hill Neighbors, who is signed up to testify, and he will speak for himself, I am sure.
Yeah.
And we will look forward to it. Let me just see if, okay, Commissioner Edie.
And thank you. And thank you for the presentation. Two quick questions. One regarding the proposal by Carnegie Hill Neighbors Association. Had that been presented to Landmarks?
Yes. The Carnegie Hill Neighbors were very much a part of the Landmarks presentation and arguments. We actually visited Landmarks twice, and they had a very large voice in our process. And so, yes, very much.
And I guess specifically,
Commissioner Edie, let me be more specific.
Thank you.
Your question.
All right.
And that is, sorry, Jeannie, but so this particular proposal was not presented to Landmarks. The shifting of the floor area never was presented. It was presented I believe it was at the community board.
Got it. Okay, no, thank you, Stuart.
It was presented at the community board. That's exactly right.
No, I appreciate that. And the second question I had was, the proposal that you're now putting forth, would that have to go back to Landmarks?
Yes, and we believe that And Kaz could speak to this if necessary, but we've been advised that this can be approved at staff level, what we're proposing at this point. But obviously, if we were shifting the floor area into the RAB, increasing visibility, that would require an entirely new public hearing process at Landmarks, which obviously we don't want.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Edie. Let me see if there are other questions from the commission here. Okay. Oh, wait, hold on. Mr. Vice Chairman, Mr. Knuckles.
Vice Chair, you were
Unmute.
muted. There we
Unmute. Thank you, Vice Chair. Mr. Chairman, Ms. Rowerton, your presentation mentioned community outreach, and I'm just wondering, does that extend to public schools in your neighborhood, particularly those northeast of you and Community Board 11, which I think might likely benefit from seeing such a stimulating environment?
I am very much interested in that. I'm involved in my own personal work. I'm on the board of Performa, and I work very closely with the Studio Museum in Harlem. I'm a big benefactor there, and we are constantly inviting school groups. We will, if all of this is able to be passed, we will absolutely be making a much more rigorous programming as it is right now. For example, during COVID, we had Gloria Steinem and Judy Chicago speaking, and we made available about 20 tickets to community school groups. But those kinds of programs need to be absolutely more concentrated on. And we love it when school groups come into our building. So yes, very important work and fulfilling.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. That looks like all we've got from the commission. So we thank all of you for your presentation today. And I am going to now turn to members of the public who wish to testify on this matter. And we're going to start with George Janes. Mr. Janes, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your last name, but the floor is yours as soon as you are ready.
George, you should be able to unmute. There you go.
Okay. Am I able to share my screen, Ryan?
You should be. It says you have started to share your screen. Let's restart the clock. I want to make sure.
It says he has started to share his screen, and yet
my screen sharing is paused. Shall I try again?
Yeah.
Okay, let me try again. It still says my screen sharing is paused.
That should not be happening. We have had people share their screen.
Let me try one more time. Okay, well, that's unfortunate. Is there not, I can go without it if you think you can't fix it on your end.
I don't believe so, but we can share the presentation materials.
Of course.
Send them to us. We'll share those with the commission.
Okay, of course. All right. Okay. All right. So my name is George Janes. I'm an urban planner, and I was asked by 1080 Fifth Avenue to calculate how the proposed addition would impact their light and air. 74711, as you know, requires that the bulk modifications you are asked to grant shall have minimal adverse effects on structures or open space in the vicinity in terms of scale, location, access to light there. Okay, so the 1080s court, which you saw earlier, is directly west of this proposed addition. It is small, and it provides the only access to light and air for several legal windows. So with new tools, we can actually calculate the amount of daylight the court currently receives, the amount of daylight it will receive under proposed conditions, and we can measure the change in daylight at the court level. And so we can say exactly how much it will be reduced. So we calculated 3 different scenarios, which I will be submitting later: existing conditions, proposed conditions, and an alternative that mitigates the impact on the court, which eliminates entirely the 6th floor addition. We then ran calculations, which produced an output, which looks like this, which you can't see, but is essentially a measurement of the amount of light every pixel gets in that area. And then we are able to do math and overlay the amount of light that this receives and actually calculate the amount of light that is lost in each pixel in the area. We then take all the pixels in the court, sum them up, and measure the change. And when we do that, we see that the court will lose, under proposed conditions, 32.9% of its light over the course of the year. It's a substantial loss of light. Removing the cube helps, but the court still loses 25.1% of its light. And you're the commission, but I think the loss of 32.9% of daylight from a legal court cannot be considered a minimal adverse impact to light. And I don't think 25.1% can be either. And I'm not sure how you could make these findings. Finally, on Monday, you saw this slide, which of course you can't see right now, but it's the slide showing the effect of the buildings from Madison Avenue. Those buildings don't shadow this court. This court is shadowed by 3 and 1080. And if you make 3 taller, you're blocking more sky, you're blocking more sun, and it's going to be more in shadow. And it's really as simple as that. We'll be sending written comments shortly.
Thank you, Mr. Janes. Let me just go back to your point about the 25.1%. In what scenario was the loss 25.1%? I'm sorry.
That is removing the 6th floor entirely.
I
so that's
see.
not moving it. Moving it actually doesn't do much for the loss of light.
I see. So I see. So with or without the 6th floor, you've lost light. You've lost either 25 or 32% is what you're saying.
Almost 33.
Almost a 33. Okay. Off of what? I mean, if you're in the depths of a courtyard in the middle of the Upper East Side, surrounded by buildings.
Yep.
So to your point, like, where would it be immaterial? I mean, if you're going from 3 minutes a day to 2 minutes a day, maybe one would say it's not super consequential. But tell us what you're referring to exactly.
Okay, sure. So daylight. What is daylight? Daylight is light from the sun. It is also light from the sky. And so by increasing the size of the 3, you're reducing light from the sky because you have a slightly smaller sky dome. But most of what happens here is that this court receives direct sun in May, June, July, and into August. And this addition blocks a good chunk of that direct sun that this court receives. And because so much of the light is from direct sun, it's going to, that good chunk of shading is going to materially impact the amount of light that this court receives over the course of the year.
Mr. James, in your presentation that you're going to send to us, does it show the amount of direct sun that this courtyard tucked between the 2 buildings gets versus what it would get? Because that's the point that you're making, and I just want to make sure that I understand. I'm surprised that this courtyard gets a whole lot of direct sun because it's just sandwiched between 2 buildings. But I want to know, is that going to be in there?
I will add it in there. It was not in there. We're looking at total illumination from both sky and sun, but we can break it out via direct versus sky.
So okay, sun is sun, and then sky. Are you talking about being able to see the sky? Is that the piece that you're? Then explain
Sure.
the second part of this calculation for our benefit.
So daylighting is not a concept that we use often in New York City in terms of analysis. But daylighting is composed of three parts. It is composed of light from the sun, light from the sky, and reflected light from other buildings. That, when you sum all that light up, you get the amount of light that is received. So for instance, the first time we used this technology was on the Art Student League of New York when they were trying to sell the air rights to what became Nordstrom Tower or Central Park Tower. And they had north-facing skylights on their roof, which received 0 direct sun. And so they wanted to know how much light they would lose. And they lost absolutely no sun because they never had any shadows. Because it's a north-facing skylight, but they did get sun from the sky. And the light from the sky. And light from the sky is an important part of lighting in our environment. It's not only about shadows, meaning direct sun or absence of direct sun. It is also, daylighting is also about light from the sky, which is, why we inspired the 1916 zoning resolution and the wedding cake of the buildings, right? It's about exposing the streets or the open spaces to the sky. And in this case, to be frank, this is in addition, it does shrink the sky that is visible, but really most of the light loss is from direct sun.
Okay, got it. Great. So then please do add that in. I think
we will add that in. We will break it up, and we will also send all of the technical documentation as well, because I know that this is not the kind of thing you're typically used to seeing.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Edie?
Thank you. Mr. James, regarding, you had mentioned legal windows. Are these rooms where the legal windows you're referring to are the only legal windows in the rooms? Or are there other legal windows that provide additional light and air?
No, for several of these are the only legal windows.
Okay, and how many windows are we talking about?
I have the floor plans. I will include that in our documentation, but it's for 2 of the units in the building. Ones that face north and ones that face east.
Okay, I look forward to seeing
it's in the range of 4 per floor, something like that.
Okay,
maybe it's 5. I will put it in the documentation.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. Let me move on. Thank you, Mr. James, for. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Commissioner Levin has a question for you.
Yeah. So, Mr. James, is your position that we shouldn't approve any of these bulk waivers, or are you addressing the proposed modification? I guess you're representing the building and not.
I'm representing the building, and they hired me as a technical consultant, right? And you have a findings to make that says minimal adverse effect. And as a professional, I've always been, I think the findings that you have to make are really important. I would love it if you used hard data in your decision making on those findings, especially when it comes to light and air, because whereas 20 years ago, we couldn't really measure it. Now we can. And I would just love it if you would actually look at the data in terms of making your decisions on this. I know you have a tradition of using shadow studies and you're sensitive to these things, but we can now calculate these things with more precision than we ever could. And I would love to see you all adopt these types of technologies into standards so that you could give people information about what your expectations would be.
Okay, so you're providing us with more information rather than particular advocacy. Was this information, this analysis, made available and considered by the Landmarks Preservation Commission?
No, I was just engaged not long ago.
I see. Okay, so we've got new information here.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, Now, Mr. James, we will thank you officially, and we're going to move on in our hearing. We appreciate your joining us today. Next up is Michael Weinzier from 1080 Fifth Avenue. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. My name is Michael Weinzier, and I'm a
Whoops. Did we just lose Mr. Weinzier?
Yes, he's coming back into the room at the moment.
Okay, we'll standing by.
How is that now?
We can hear you.
Great. My status changed and went back. Okay, perfect. Can I start?
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. My name is Michael Weinzier, and I'm appearing today on behalf of the Board of Directors and tenant shareholders of 1080 Fifth Avenue. While 1080 views the renovation of 3 East 89th as additive to the neighborhood, we are absolutely and unequivocally opposed to the proposed rooftop expansion in its entirety. In the pending application, the owner is first proposing to effectively add an entirely new fifth floor, which will be 12 feet in height. The owner continuously refers to the new fifth floor as simply a, quote, infill of an existing fifth floor, and that is extremely misleading and inaccurate. As the commission can see from the applicant's plans, today there is nothing more than a small parapet at the southern end of the roof and some mechanicals. This is a new fifth floor that will add 12 feet in height and more than 20,000 cubic feet of volume on top of that existing building. Understand it's that fifth floor addition, 12 feet in height, that is contributing to most of that permanent loss of light that George just outlined for you. The proposed new sixth floor residential penthouse would add another 15 feet on top of the proposed new fifth floor. So in total, adding 2 floors and increasing the actual height of the current 4-story building in reality by 27 feet. What's the impact? That massive 27-foot addition will permanently destroy the light and air that's currently enjoyed by families, occupying nearly half of the apartments that span the entire inner courtyard at 1080 Fifth Avenue. And all of this just to effectively create a single luxury penthouse apartment that a visiting artist can occasionally occupy. As George Janes just testified, the inner court at 1080 will permanently lose across a year more than 32% of its light under this proposed 27-foot tall addition. Under the circumstances, and George already mentioned this, I do not see how the commission could find that a 32% permanent loss of light from that proposed rooftop addition could be considered a minimal impact on the surrounding light and air. The extent of that permanent loss of light to 1080 is shocking. The proposed penthouse residence is clearly unnecessary for the operation of the proposed commercial art gallery. It is nothing but a vanity addition to the building, particularly when the owner already provides in her application that the existing 4th floor and the proposed new 5th floor may be used for residential purposes. Make no mistake, 3 East 89th will operate as a privately owned high-end commercial art gallery, not a school or a museum or any other type of nonprofit institution. The business is going to be operated to enrich a single owner and others participating in the consortium at the great expense of countless neighboring families whose homes will be significantly and permanently impaired as a result of the proposed rooftop addition.
Time.
1080 continues to strongly oppose the
I'm
entire
sorry,
proposed.
Mr. Weinzier, that's time for you. My
Can I just
apologies.
finish my last sentence?
Go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 1080 continues to strongly oppose the entire proposed rooftop addition, and we hope that the City Planning Commission finds that the rooftop addition must be entirely eliminated and avoids setting what we consider to be a very dangerous precedent. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Looking for members of the commission, seeing none. Mr. Weinzier, we appreciate your testimony. Sorry, don't go anywhere. We've got Commissioner Levin.
Yes, I just wanted to ask Mr. Weinstein, I assume I understand the answer is likely to be yes, but did you make a similar presentation and argument to the Landmarks Preservation Commission? Were these issues considered by them?
not the light issue that Mr. Janes just presented. We did not have the benefit of that study and analysis done. So some of the same themes and some of the same issues were raised, but we did not have the benefit of that scientific analysis, if you will, so that we could quantify the impact that actually is going to result from this expansion.
Okay, well, as I'm sure you appreciate, our jurisdiction here is limited to the waivers that are requested. So it doesn't go to the entire Penthouse edition, which has already been approved by Landmarks Preservation Commission. I understand you might not be happy with that, but there's not much we can do about that. We're going to have to focus on the bulk waivers.
Oh, the height, am I correct that the height increase, though, is a waiver?
Well, we've got maps showing exactly the extent of what the waiver is. I don't believe that is, but we'll be taking a careful look at it in the follow-up.
Right, because my understanding is, just for what it's worth, that the combination of the increase in the 5th and the 6th are both in and of themselves increases in waivers to go above the 74-foot height limit that's permitted in the district.
Okay, we'll take a close look.
Sure, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Weinzier. We're going to move on now to Lo Vandervalk from Carnegie Hill Neighbors. Welcome.
I've unmuted. Oh, I got no video.
We can hear you.
Okay. My video is a default today. Okay, I apologize. So I will only be speaking.
That's okay. That's okay.
All right. Well, my name is Lo Vandervalk. I'm president of Carnegie Hill Neighbors, and I represent their views. And we are pleased to be able to speak out on this application. We note that you noted on your Monday session that we had two major concerns and proposals, and we're pleased to hear that the applicant has responded to the second proposal, which would be squaring the triangle and pulling it back by 5 feet from the rear yard, which I think is a good solution, and I think it will prove to be acceptable to us, provided, of course, that the lighting that goes towards the west will not in the evenings impact the neighboring building, because those are curtain glass windows. But I'm sure that will be taken care of. The other proposal that we mentioned was the pullback of the penthouse by 4.5 feet to the north, and the push out to the east as a compensation. I think that the pullback could still be valid without the compensation. There would be a reduction in floor space, but it would still provide some kind of a salutary impact on 1080, quite apart from any light studies. However, referring to the light studies, I will mention that 1083 has two top floors with 8 windows that would be impacted by the addition to the degree of 21% using the same basis, and that would be reduced only to 6% without the penthouse. However, moving on to an earlier issue that I had raised at Landmarks and at the community board, there is a window at 1083 Fifth Avenue in the rotunda at the second floor, which is very important. It's not a first floor window, it's a second floor window. It's one of the 3 second floor windows. A lot of light comes in, and our study had shown that it will lose 51% of light, and under all available scenarios. And I think this is a very important consideration, and I will elaborate on that in my written statement. It could not be addressed at the Landmarks Commission, if I may just say, because Landmarks does not deal with the issue of light.
Thank you, Mr. Vandervalk. Lo, it's good to hear you. Sorry we couldn't see you, but good to hear you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, we'll look forward to your written submission. Now we're going to move on to Asa Nickel from Performa.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Great. My name is Issa Nickel. I'm here on behalf of Performa, a nonprofit arts organization, and we present live performances by contemporary artists around the city. We're part of the New York City nonprofit cultural community, and we would like to offer our full support for the new Salon 94 project at 3 East 89th Street. For the past 17 years, we've collaborated with cultural partners around the city. And in 2011, we had the great pleasure of working with National Academy of Design, which is the building that is being redone for Salon 94. It's important to us in the cultural history of New York that 3 East 89th Street remains a vital and lively cultural destination, and that it continues to be a home for the creation and display of work. Salon 94 is making an admirable investment in that, preserves our history and legacy of artists. We live in a city that has been experiencing rampant new construction, and we are especially supportive of the effort to reinvigorate this important space rather than build it anew. The gorgeous restoration and the free access offered to the public sets an example to others about what can be achieved using existing spaces rather than knocking them down and starting over again. For this, the building requires alterations and additions that we hope will be generously accepted by the surrounding community. We know that Genie has a clear vision of what Salon 94 on 89th Street can be for the artists and audiences that it will serve, and that she has an excellent understanding of how the new facility can serve our larger cultural community. Although Salon 94 is a commercial enterprise, Genie is well known for her steadfast support of nonprofit organizations and her open door policy that offers space for programming like ours. Unlike just about every other commercial gallery in New York City, Genie engages enthusiastically with organizations like Performa and is fiercely dedicated to making sure New York City remains one of the most exciting cities in the world for contemporary culture. Thanks to Genie and the Salon 94 for this wonderful addition to the New York City cultural community. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Next up is Darcy Alexander from the Jewish Museum. Ms. Alexander, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi
yes.
there. Thanks so much for having me today. I am Darcy Alexander. I'm the Senior Deputy Director at the Jewish Museum and Chief Curator right up the street from Salon 94. And I just want to start by recognizing Salon 94 is really one of the most important outposts for contemporary art in New York. It has grown its reputation over an extended period of years, culminating in this new project on 89th Street. And I have to really commend Genie and her team for the incredibly thoughtful and calibrated way that she has addressed both her program and her relationship with artists. As a curator at the Jewish Museum who works in the context of an old family mansion on Fifth Avenue, I know how tricky it can be to balance the integrity of a historic site with the state-of-the-art infrastructure that's really needed to run a first-class cultural organization, which I think Salon 94 is. I was stunned when I saw the building a couple of years ago and the beautiful renovation that they had done, really managing to keep the integrity and the grandeur of the building and all of its wonderful details, which have been spoken to here, while opening up the space to an entirely new vision, bringing a different voice and energy to that neighborhood. And I say neighborhood very intentionally because I think there is tremendous potential here to further invigorate this neighborhood and local audiences. This is a commercial operation, yes, but it is part of a thriving cultural scene on the Upper East Side. I was incredibly impressed to hear how Genie responded with her team to what was happening during the pandemic. A lot of arts institutions really suffered. It's great and it's commendable how Salon 94 has grown, but in growing, they also reached out to their community. I understand that they provided meals to first responders, donated food to food pantries, and worked with local schools. I think this is a testament to the integrity of the organization. As I understand it, there are certain essential adjustments that need to be made to continue to to improve upon this building and to make it not just a site for displaying art, but a site for creativity, intellectual, and artistic. We at the Jewish Museum are fully behind this project, and we do hope that you will seriously consider the proposals that they brought forward for further amendments to the building. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is Whitney Donhauser from the Museum of the City of New York.
Whitney is not here.
Okay, well, she was registered in favor for whatever it is worth. Let's go on to Kevin Rudd.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioners. You might ask, what's an Australian doing addressing a City Planning Commission meeting in the City of New York? Good question. I'm President and CEO of the Asia Society, and the Asia Society on the corner of Park and 70th is one of New York's longest standing arts and culture institutions where we run our own museum. And through that, I have got to know Genie Roberton really well and have got to know her commitment to the arts and cultural life of New York City. But beyond that, I also, for the last 5 years, have been a parishioner at Church of Heavenly Rest, which is kind of next door. So I walk by a lot, I walk in a lot, and I, like others have seen, have been impressed by the quality of the renovation to date. And thirdly, having been a resident of this great city for the last 7 years, I'm deeply familiar with how landmarks and the planning process now works here. We've done a renovation of a heritage listed building, a landmarks listed building here in East 49th. You have a pretty good system in this country for weighing these various considerations in this city. I'm impressed. My last job, by the way, was Prime Minister of Australia before I came here. This is my first engagement with any political process since I left office in Australia. So full marks to all of you. What are my 3 reasons for speaking in favour of Genie Roberton's proposal? Number 1 is simply this. In the period that I've been with the Asia Society, I've seen the damage done to arts and cultural institutions on the Upper East, but across the city of New York because of the pandemic. This has had a huge effect. And to see someone prepared to reinvest in this and to create a whole bunch of new opportunities for those engaged in contemporary art world in New York, I think is a great thing. It also provides a whole new range of creative outlets and possibilities for young people in the wider New York community. My second reason for supporting this is I always love to see a vibrant entrepreneurial woman leading a project like this in a great city like this. And she is a woman who is deeply committed to engaging other young women artists from across the city as well. And the third, and it goes to what was said before by Vice Chair Knuckles in his question about outreach into the wider New York community, including Harlem and beyond. We do a bit of that through our own Church of the Heavenly Rest, but I've seen the equivalent of that in terms of Genie's deep commitment to taking what is a private museum or a private gallery, I should say, into a much wider program of outreach to the broader community. So for those reasons, Chair Grodnick, I'm happy to support this proposal for a modest waiver of your planning guidelines in order to accommodate Salon 94's proposal. Back to you.
Thank you very much. We very much appreciate your being here and appreciate that if you were going to be involved in a political process here, that it would be this one. So we're delighted to have you here before the commission. Thank you for your testimony, and we appreciate it. So thank you for being here. Next up, we're going to hear from Naomi Beckwith from the Guggenheim.
Hello, can everyone hear and or see me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chair Grodnick.
And now we can see you.
Even better. Thank you so very much. Good morning, everyone, all the commissioners, officers, etc. I am Naomi Beckwith. I am the Deputy Director and Chief Curator at the Guggenheim Museum, right across from Salon 94. And I am more than thrilled to be here today, this morning, offering our unequivocal support to this project. We know Genie Roberton and her partners as not only cultural leaders in the city, but also as neighbors. And we believe that Salon 94 is already a proven asset to this community. I know that this is a commercial enterprise, but I also know that in today's art world, it is very clear that sometimes those lines and functions between commercial sites and the nonprofit world begin to blur. And in that way, Genie and her partners, her friends in this project have really understood that they have to provide and must provide real benefits to the broadest possible audiences. And that does indeed include children. We also know this program as a really brilliant, internationally driven one that has really been focused on inclusivity and diversity, and has been a leader in that in the contemporary art sphere right now. Of course, I'm speaking as an architect, as a museum professional, and I am not speaking as I'm speaking not as an architect, but as a museum professional. I cannot speak, of course, to the particularities of the plan. I can't speak to light issues and so forth. But I can say that I know that what Genie and Salon 94 really endeavors to do is provide care and space to artists, especially artists in their program who are often international, coming from abroad, who are often women, and who are often women of color, and who often do not have the luxury of finding space to accommodate them over the long term in this community. And so what Genie is really looking forward to is providing a space where they can be and work as they create new projects that will then be a greater offering to the public. I also understand that the work of this gallery has always been elegant. It has always been respectful of the work that comes before it, that it understands the legacy it's inheriting in this building, the community that it's a part of. And we know that this is the Salon 94 is going to be a great steward, both of the space, but also of this amazing cultural corridor that happens here on and around Upper Fifth Avenue. And so again, I'm really happy to be here today to just tell you that we at the Guggenheim support this project and really look forward to the expansion as part of the neighborhood.
Thank you very much, Ms. Beckwith. We appreciate it. Thank you for being here with us. We are going to move on to Debbie Wish.
Debbie Wish is not here.
Okay, then we're going to move on to Sarah Khalifa.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, and here I am. Okay. Good afternoon, I believe by now, everybody. I am a longtime resident of Museum Mile, and I've spoken before on behalf of Genie and her Ne Plus Ultra gallery space, her second in the neighborhood. I would like to remind everybody what a great addition to the neighborhood Salon 94 design has been, especially during the pandemic. It has really provided me with a much needed hermitage of wonderful art and design during a most troubling time. And every time I've been there, I have seen school groups, I have seen community groups, and I've seen students with their teachers going through the building. It is a very inclusive space. It is a very democratic space, and it is a very sorely needed space on Fifth Avenue, because the only way we can revive New York City is really through the arts, which have been really hit very strongly in the last 2 years. I know revenues are down in museums, so we need galleries to provide us with that much needed source of beauty, enlightenment, which Genie is so good at. I had the pleasure of attending one of her salons, which involved the poetry of Ahmed al-Mursi, who is one of the last of the Egyptian surrealists who lived, and his children grew up in New York City. And it was one of the most memorable evenings of my life. I know that anything Genie touches turns to gold. I have absolutely always admired her roster of artists. They include women, they include men, they include transgender, I mean, from every walk of life. So she's all inclusive. And I urge you to accept her application, and I urge you to make this building a great source of learning and knowledge for everyone. And it will be an all-inclusive space. I know that because I know Genie and I know what she stands for and who she is. And I will yield the rest of my time for whoever needs it, because I've said it all. And I thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate your being here and for your comments today. Next, we will go to Ruth Ann Gianetto.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
My name is.
I can see you now too.
My name is Ruth Ann Gianetto. I am the Director of Capital Projects at the Church of the Heavenly Rest. We first learned about this project when someone in Genie's consulting group reached out to us to ask for a meeting with myself and other leadership of the church to go over the project with slides, the architectural team, the construction team, and we met in our facility for an hour plus to review all internal, external, and anything that would impact our building, including a shadow study of the impact of the light on our stained glass window. Our experience with Genie is that she has been, and her group, that they have been professionals, they have been straightforward, and they've been collaborative. We supported the project at that point. It's been modified since. We continue to collaborate or have, Genie has collaborated with us in art projects that we're doing here at Church of the Heavenly Rest. So we, as a parish and as a building in the neighborhood, are thrilled to have her around the corner. We think she's revitalized, her project revitalizes the neighborhood and does an enormous amount for that particular block. Genie took myself and the rector on a tour of the building in many stages. And we are thrilled that she has brought that building back to life and the art that she'll be bringing to the neighborhood. I basically support what people have said leading up to my discussion.
Great. Thank you very much. We appreciate your sharing that. And thank you for being with us. Let me move now on to Daniel White.
Daniel White is not in the room.
Wait, but before she goes, could I ask a question?
Oh, of course. I'm so sorry, Commissioner. I missed you.
That's okay. No, I was slow on the trigger here, but I'm very glad Ms. Gianetto is here, because one of the questions I had as this began its way through ULURP is about the impact on your stained glass windows. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the shadow studies that you were shown?
Well, I haven't looked at them in quite some time, I must say.
Okay.
But they were broken down to different seasons, and they were broken down to, as I recall, morning, midday, and evening. And there is some impact, but it was, from my point of view, it was minimal. It was 10 minutes, 20 minutes, that kind of thing.
Okay, so not
And
enough.
it's been a while. I haven't seen it I haven't looked at it in quite some time.
Okay, but fundamentally not enough to deter you from being a supporter of the project.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Commissioner. Sorry I missed you. Okay, next up is Daniel White. Oh, you said Daniel White is not there. Sorry.
Correct. Mhm.
Okay, so the last person that we have signed up, so I'm going to give a last call here for anybody wishing to testify, is Gabriela Rivadeneira.
Gabriella is also not here.
Also not here. Okay, so I'm going to give the final call for anybody else now. Okay. Well, we had a robust hearing on that item, so I am going to close the hearing on the matter of 3 East 89th Street, calendar number 27, and ask the secretary to call the next item.
Borough of the Bronx, calendar numbers 28 and 29. 4541 Furman Avenue rezoning, CD2, calendar number 28, C200228 ZMX, calendar number 29, N200229 ZRX. Public hearing in the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments.
Great. Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. We have an applicant team here that includes the following, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves when they speak, but they include Josh Weissman, Nora Martins, William Bollinger, Joshua Weissman, and Lauren George. So welcome to you all, and whenever you're ready, please introduce yourself and proceed.
I was going to say good morning, but I just realized it's actually good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair Grodnick and Commissioners. Nora Martin from Ackerman LLP, representing Markland 4551 LLC, the applicant for the proposed land use application, which will facilitate redevelopment of this underutilized site located at 4541 Furman Avenue with a mixed use, 100% affordable housing development. I'm joined, as you mentioned, by Josh Weissman and Bill Bollinger from JCal Development Group, the proposed developer of this project, who will address questions raised by the Commission relating to commercial viability and the proposed affordable housing program. Next slide, please. Briefly, this land use application includes a zoning map amendment from the existing M11 district to an R7D district with a C24 commercial overlay along White Plains Road, together with zoning text amendments to establish an MIH area, option 1, and extend the transit zone. Next. You can see the proposed development site outlined in red on this aerial photo. There's a significant grade change from the White Plains Road frontage, which you can see is adjacent to the elevated subway line, down to Furman Avenue, which I'll be discussing in a little more detail later in this presentation, but this grade change makes providing parking for this development as proposed much less cost prohibitive than usual, as minimal excavation is required to create the cellar parking level. Next. Here we have the area map showing the proposed rezoning and surrounding context. As you can see, the proposed C24 overlay on White Plains Road is consistent with the existing commercial overlay that extends along both sides of White Plains Road to the north and south of the site. White Plains Road is the main, really the only commercial corridor in this community district. Next. These photos show the existing conditions on the site from both the White Plains Road and Furman Avenue frontages. Due to the grade change, the existing warehouse building is only accessible from Furman Avenue, as you can see in the top 2 photos, has a very minimal presence on White Plains Road, shown in the bottom 2 photos. Next. The zoning change map illustrates the proposed R7D and R7D C24 zoning districts that would be established for the development site, as well as the remainder of the block extending to the north up to 240th Street. The proposed zoning district is an extension of the recently rezoned block to the north, pursuant to the 241st Street rezoning, and would facilitate the proposed redevelopment of the site, as well as bring several non-conforming residential uses on the block into conformance. Next. We're also proposing to extend the transit zone here. So this map shows the existing transit zone shaded in gray. You can see circled the subject block, which is a gap in the transit zone that was not initially included. Next slide. Here you have the proposed transit zone map showing filling in that gap to include this block within the transit zone. Next. This map shows the nearby subway and bus lines. As the chair mentioned, the site is very well located with regard to public transit, located smack in between subway stations for both the 2 and 5 subway lines, less than a 5-minute walk to either. Recognizing, however, the site is located toward the end of the line for both subways. However, we did initially propose 22 parking spaces in the proposed development, which is the minimum that would be required outside the transit zone and could be accommodated on the site as self-parking. Next slide. Just in brief, the proposed development will be a 10-story building with 2 building segments, 148 income restricted dwelling units and 52 parking spaces. There will be approximately 11,000 square foot community facility space on Furman Avenue and 7,146 square foot retail space on White Plains Road. Changes to the unit count and parking since this application was filed with the City Planning Commission were made in response to feedback from Bronx Community Board 12 and the Bronx Borough President. We reduced the number of studios and increased the number of 2 and 3 bedroom units up to nearly 35%, resulting in a slight reduction in units to 148 from the 150 originally proposed. We also increased the parking from 22 to 46 spaces by changing the layout from self-parking to stackers operated by an attendant, and then further increased the spaces slightly to 52 as currently proposed by a minimal enlargement to the proposed cellar level. Next. The site plan illustrates the proposed open space you can see in green located midway between the 2 building segments. The 5,321 square foot terrace accessible from Furman Avenue, from the Furman Avenue building segment, and a 28,000 square foot terrace accessible from the White Plains Road building segment. Next. This ground floor plan shows in blue the proposed community facility space that fronts on Furman Avenue along with the entrance to the parking level below. Next. And this ground floor plan shows the retail space fronting on White Plains Road, as well as the outdoor open space accessible from the Furman Avenue building segment in white in between, which you can see is accessible, or maybe a little difficult to see, but accessible from an indoor recreation space located in the building. Next. And then the second floor plan similarly shows the outdoor open space, this time for the White Plains Road portion of the building, also accessible from an indoor recreation room. Next. This section diagram illustrates you have on the right, White Plains Road frontage, and on the left, Furman Avenue. You can see almost a full level grade change between the frontages. And you have the cellar proposed, you have this color coded to show community facility, retail, and residential program. And then the cellar is hatched. While this shows a full cellar excavation due to the existing building and the grade change, only a few feet would actually need to be excavated in order to create this full parking level. Next. Here is the street level rendering from White Plains Road, which I believe the commission saw at their review session on Monday. Next. And here we have an aerial rendering showing the full building from the Furman Avenue perspective, which will be designed with the same facade details and materials as the White Plains Road frontage. I'll now turn this over to Josh Weissman to discuss the neighborhood context, proposed retail tenant mix, and commercial viability based on their experience developing similar buildings in the Bronx. Next.
Sure. Thank you, Nora. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll try to be brief. White Plains Road, as Nora said, is currently the only commercial corridor in the immediate area. And with 500 new units under construction currently, the rezoning of 2/3 of the block, we believe there is an opportunity and a need to increase and upgrade the retail here. As said before, we are between 2 subway stops and on a bus route. And from what we have reviewed and have been told by the community board, there is a desire for new retail. Next slide, please. Currently on White Plains Road, you could see some of the uses here. There's a new hotel that opened up. The Last Stop Grill and Bar is new. And there are some smaller mom and pop stores as well. Adding Class A space will help attract additional users like we have previously done in other parts of the Bronx on St. Anne's Avenue and Alexander Avenue with entrepreneurial and locally owned retail. We do have the ability to bring large-scale retail like gyms, laundromat, urgent care, and daycares, but we prefer to do more unique and neighborhood-based uses like restaurants, gastropubs, and boutiques, which bring energy and nightlife to the area, which is much needed. Next slide, please. Specifically along Alexander Avenue, where we own 4 buildings, we were able to bring the Lit Bar, the only bookstore in the Bronx, whose owner, Noel Santos, pictured here, is a Bronx native. We also brought a New York-style Italian restaurant and bistro and Bricks and Hops, which are a hip-hop themed restaurant and a gastropub, respectively, which are owned by Bronxites Alfredo Ongaro and Junior Martinez. So we're able to bring retail that's better suited for the neighborhood that our buildings are in. Next slide, please. I'll turn it over to my partner, Bill, to go over the unit distribution.
Hi, thank you all. So this unit distribution complies from the affordability levels with an ELA program from HPD. I just want to note that while the MIH program, of course, requires 25% permanent affordability, the fact that we have HPD financing, and you commissioners may already know this, that requires an additional 15% of the units to be set aside permanently affordable. So there'll be 40% of these units will be set aside for permanent affordability. In addition, our experience lately with HPD is for the remaining, for all the units, they'll have, the remaining units will all be covered by a regulatory agreement that will last 60 years. And then of course, those will be rent stabilized of the entire project. So you can see that, I don't know if you need me to break down all the units, but you can see the distribution of where we have basically 50% of the units are at low income and extremely low income, and the other 50% are at working family housing at 60 and 70% AMIs. So this is the breakdown. So you'll see the rentals will go from $419 per month to $1,300 on the studio, and then on the 3 bedrooms will go from $397 to $2,273. And I'll just note that we have
there it is. Sorry to interrupt you, but we have hit the time.
That actually concluded our presentation. So.
Okay, all right. Well, the timing was almost perfect then. Sorry about that. Okay. I wanted to just pose one question, then we'll go to other commissioners here. On the parking, the parking has changed from the start to the middle to present. It started at 22 spaces, went to 46, and now is 52, as I understand it. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Can you say a little bit more about that process, why you think that's appropriate and in the best interest of the project, and how we should view all of that?
Sure. So just to explain the change, we initially proposed 22 parking spaces in the project because, although this is a very transit-rich area, it is towards the end of the line for the subway, and we know that this community district has concerns about adequate parking. And most importantly, it's because it was possible to provide at a relatively low cost. Usually, providing parking is not really necessary and is also cost prohibitive for affordable housing developments. But here, because of the grade change from White Plains Road to Furman Avenue, we basically are able to provide parking at a cellar level with minimal excavation. So we went into the project actually proposing 22 parking spaces. We went to the community board. They had, they recommended disapproval of this application based on not enough parking, despite our, offer to increase the number of parking spaces to 46 spaces, which is basically the maximum we could accommodate in that cellar footprint by use of stackers, attended parking. And then we went to the Bronx Borough President and the office, and we've heard this feedback from the council member and from the Bronx Borough President that parking is a big concern in this community. Is there anything else we can provide? So we're able to push out the cellar a little bit, again, at a relatively minimal cost to get to the 52 parking spaces that we're currently proposing. But that really is the maximum that could be accommodated on the site in response to that feedback.
Okay, got it. And so your point about the ease of doing it relates to the slope, the grade change that exists there already. Okay, all right,
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so it would be 52 spaces and 150 units, right?
148 units, that's
I'm
correct.
sorry, 148 units. Okay. All right, great. Thank you. Let me see if there's questions from the commission on this one. Vice Chair Knuckles.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to ask the team, I want to go to the Furman Avenue side of the project, and specifically the entrance. There's an entrance on Furman Avenue, is there not? And
yes,
what it looks like at ground level there, Bill. You know, I know you have some fenestration at the ground level. What is that? Is that the garage, or, you know, what is actually occurring there on either side of the entrance on Furman Avenue?
sure. So I don't know if we can bring, if it's helpful to bring the presentation back up.
Yeah, it would be. Thank you.
Yeah, if, land use can do that. Okay, so if you can go back a few slides. We don't have yet a ground level rendering for Furman Avenue, but I think if we can go to the
Right there.
floor plans and the site plan, we can explain
Right.
how the entrances work. So if you go back, sorry. Continue to go back.
Yeah, it's White Plains Road.
Yeah,
Right.
back again. Sorry, to the back one more.
One more, two more.
Two more. Sorry. One more.
One more. There you go.
Perfect.
Okay.
So you can see the parking entrance that's located, you know, sort of the southernmost portion of the proposed building. And then you have the community facility entrance, then the residential building lobby, and then you have a separate community facility entrance on the other side, which would, you know, allow it for sufficient egress. And also you could have multiple tenants.
And so what do you envision for the community facility use? What kinds of community facility uses are you contemplating?
Well, couple of them solutions would be that we're looking at is potentially daycares, as well as potential, you know, other like services, you know, support services. But just getting back to the design there, that facade level at the lower level would have kind of replicate what you see on Furman as far as a glass facade. It wouldn't be a blank wall or anything like that. So it would have that same entrance for the residential off of Furman, and the rest of that facade would appear as like a commercial storefront.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Looking for questions from the rest of the commission, if there are any. Going once, going twice. Okay, thank you. Let me thank the applicant team for your presentation today. We appreciate it. I will note that we have an Adam Leonard signed up, but I believe that he is not present. He may be, I don't know if he's part of the team, but he is not present.
He is not in.
Not in. Okay. So going to see if there's any other members of the public wishing to testify. The last chance on 4541 Furman Avenue rezoning, calendar 2829. Seeing none, we're going to close the hearing on calendars 28 and 29. And I will ask you, Madam Secretary, if there's any other business before the commission today.
No, Chair Gorodnick, but I do have
Great.
some public information to share.
Go ahead.
For those of you who are unable to or did not wish to testify, you can submit written testimony online by selecting this hearing on the upcoming meetings page of the NYC Engage portal, through DCP's webpage, or by mailing your comments to City Planning Commission, Calendar Information Office, 120 Broadway, 31st floor, New York, New York, 10271.
Great. Thank you, Madam Secretary, and thanks to the commissioners for your attentiveness and presence today. Also to all members of the Department of City Planning staff, and of course to the applicants for their taking a chance and making investments in New York City, which we really do appreciate. And with that, today's public hearing public hearings and meeting of the City Planning Commission is adjourned, and we will see you all soon. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Ed.
Bye all.
Bye.
The time is 12:30 p.m.